Hello and welcome to the Game Plan Podcast by College Baseball Advisors. I'm your host, Wayne Mazzoni. My background is 30 years as a college baseball coach, current owner of College Baseball Advisors, where I help players and parents navigate the recruiting process. For more information about that, please visit the website collegebaseballadvisor.com. There you can find information about players I'm currently working with, players that I've already worked with and placed in college, but also all the past episodes of these podcasts where we've had some great guests, including today's great guest, Rob Vaughn, head coach at University of Alabama. I've known Rob kind of off and on over the years, from coaching against him when he was at K-State to hiring him for a camp that I was running in 2015, and then at the Mohegan Sun Coaches Convention in 2023, we reconnected, and I was the MC for a couple of his really awesome sessions there. Rob is a special person. We talked, of course, covered his background of growing up in Texas and getting recruited to Kansas State and how that shaped his recruiting process there, shaped the way he recruits even to this day. He talked about his playing experience there, his minor league experience, and then his coaching path, which was Kansas State for 2 years. He then followed John Sheff to University of Maryland. When Sheff then took the job at Virginia Tech, Rob stayed on and got the head coaching job there. He talks a lot about how bad of a coach he really was that first year, not in the baseball part of it, but just not running the program with the right culture that he wanted, and how kind of some soul searching and looking in the mirror led him to read several books, which kind of gave him his core pillars of what he wanted to be about, what did he want his program to be about, and how that took Maryland to really great success. And then, of course, he has the job at Alabama where he had great success last year. But you can just tell from this podcast, this is just an awesome, great character, just a great human being. I joked with him that, limiting himself to just Alabama baseball, there's maybe a lot more for him as an author, a speaker, a military person, a government person, an elected official. He's just really what kind of guy you can get behind, because he's just a great human being. So I hope that you enjoyed this podcast as much as I did recording it. I'd like to remind you that this podcast is sponsored by the Mohegan Sun Baseball Coaches Convention, which takes place every January at the Mohegan Sun Casino. This year is January 15th to 17th, 2026. As I alluded, Rob Vaughn has spoken before. This year's lineup of coaches is as awesome as it's always been. If you go to the website baseballcoachesclinic.com, there's a lot of information. You could see the vendors, you could see the venue, you could see the past presenters and schedule, and see who's speaking at this year's event. It's an event that I don't miss, and I'm actively a part of, and do speeches on my own every year, whether they're about recruiting or something else. Just a great event. So again, please check that out at baseballcoachesclinic.com. And without further delay, here's my talk with Rob Vaughn, head baseball coach at the University of Alabama. All right, so Rob, first of all, this is one of my favorite parts of my week, because in a very busy modern world of a million things going on, I personally love the locking in and just talking with another human uninterrupted for a while. So I'm excited to be here with you. And there's three things, doing a little research on this. I think you know a couple of them, but one is in 2023 when you did an unbelievable presentation at Mohegan, I was the guy that introed you. And I don't know what year it was. You were an assistant at Maryland. I ran a camp in Connecticut, and you came in and did a speech, which I sent you. I don't know if you saw it on your text. You did. I
watched it the other day.
Yeah, which was really, really cool. And then I also looked at that in 2012 when I was coaching at Sacred Heart. We came out and got our butts kicked by Kansas State in a 3-game series, and you were coaching there. I was trying to remember, to put you on the spot here. You guys had a center fielder back then who was a freak with a block neck that looked like he could have been a pro linebacker. Do you remember that kid?
Oh yeah, Jared King.
Jared King, that's right.
He could really hit, he could run. His older brother Jason played with me at K-State. So in that family, I don't know what his parents fed them growing up, because those dudes they had muscles that I don't even think I have in my body. And they were physical, they could run, they could hit. Jared was a special player.
Yes, I remember, the BP, the crazy power, but then he absolutely flew on the bases too, and I was this kid's got it all there. But all right, so there's a lot of stuff I want to cover with you, a little different from my other guests, but I still like to go through some chronology. Were you born and raised in Texas?
Yeah, so I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas, and my dad was in the oil business. My dad played baseball at Texas A&M. When he got out out of college in the late 60s, and you don't know what you want to do with your life in Texas, you go get in the oil business. And so that actually took us up to Anchorage, Alaska. We lived in Anchorage, Alaska from when I was 1 to 7. So he was up there. We lived in Anchorage. He would fly up to the North Slope up in the Beaufort Sea up there and work one week on, 1 week off. And so when I was in, I think it was 1994, 1995, something like that, we moved back to Houston. And he still continued to commute up there. I mean, he would fly up and spend 2 weeks up there, 2 weeks home. But grew up, we moved to Humboldt, just northeast of Houston. So spent that's home to me. I don't remember much of Alaska. I mean, I remember being cold and dark in the winter, play hockey up there when I was a kid. But yeah, home for me is Houston, Texas, right outside of Houston. So went to high school there, grew up there. That's home for me.
On a side note, have you seen the show Landman?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's really. I mean, I don't know if it's so well acted, but I don't know enough about the oil business if it's actual, but it's a good show.
So that's my dad. My dad's beautiful. He's 78 years old now, and he struggles because he'll watch. He's like, that's not what a landman does. I'm like, Dad, it's a show, man. Like nobody cares about a landman. Like his acting is unbelievable here. So let's just enjoy the show. So after he got past that, he was like, yeah, the show's awesome. But he's something. He's like, Dad, they're not being hunted by a drug cartel.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So growing up in for the most part of it, Texas, obviously baseball was a big part. Were you in other sport? Did you play other sports growing up?
Yeah, I played basketball growing up. I had spinal meningitis twice when I was a kid. So
wow.
My mom, and I'm an only child, so Mama wasn't letting me get on the football field, which in Texas, if you don't play high school football, that's like a arch sin there. Right. I played baseball, played basketball growing up, and then realized I was 5'9" and very average shooter, very mediocre athlete, and that was the end of my. Once I got through middle school, it was like, all right, let's just roll to baseball. So played baseball. I mean, baseball was it. I played hockey growing up as a kid. I played soccer as a kid, and then when we moved to Texas, it was baseball year round. Played basketball in the winter. And then once I got into high school, it was baseball from then out.
And what do you remember? I'm assuming a good amount of the process that got you to Kansas State. Was there many opportunities? How did that come about that you landed there?
Yeah, I played with a team called the Houston Heat, and at the time, the Houston Heat aren't really. I think they're around still. It's not quite what it was. I mean, there's some other teams. There's the Wildcatters that popped up. Banditos that popped up, but there were at the time it was like the travel organization in Houston, and played with some good players. Jay Bruce was on that team. Johnny Whittleman, who was a second-round draft pick, was on the team. The Ewing twins were on the team. Both played SEC. So really good team, and I was like the really good 7, 8, 9 hole hitter for that team, right? Like I was a good player, but I was probably like the B+ player in Texas. I was not the A+. I was not, my dream obviously was to play at Texas A&M. That's where my dad played. I grew up going to, I grew up in that, going to all the football games and baseball games. We were only an hour and a half from College Station, so we were up there all the time. That was my dream. And at the time, Mark Johnson, legendary head coach there, I wasn't the mold of his players at that time. I was smaller. I think I had a lot of like grit and toughness to me, but I was kind of an overachiever. I wasn't just physically gifted in a lot of those ways, and so it was still my dream. They were recruiting me a little bit. Like I talked to them a little bit, but man, Sean McCann, who's now the video coordinator at the University of Tennessee, there with Tony Vitello. Sean McCann was the recruiting coordinator and pitching coach at Kansas State at the time. And it was the most relentless recruiting process. And so much of what I do in recruiting and did in recruiting is stuff that I learned from Sean McCann. I mean, it was wow. He kind of went through there, and these were the days where you couldn't talk to him until July 1 of their junior year, and you could only talk to him once a week. So he was the first phone call I got on July 1 at 7:30 in the morning. And I remember wanting to go anywhere else other than Kansas State. I was dating a girl at the time that was going to Texas A&M. Man, it was my dream. It was like that's all I wanted. Nothing else mattered. But what he did, man, is he made Kansas State a priority. I mean, there was a time where every day I opened my mailbox, would open it up, and a letter from K-State would fall out, and it was a reason to come to K-State every day for like 100-something days. And so just the relentlessness of that was like, man, like maybe I need to pay attention to what they got going on here. And they had made it a real priority to recruit the Texas area. And my kind of idol in baseball was a kid named Brandon Farr. And Brandon played at Humble High School. He was the senior catcher when I was a freshman. Went to Blinn Junior College, ended up at Kansas State. But to the point that, like, the way B. Farr wore his wristbands, I wore mine. The way he taped his wrist, I taped mine. Like, it was that guy. And I saw him go to K-State and had a great experience. I went on a recruiting visit up there. There was like 9 of us Texas kids on that visit. Some of my teammates that I knew or had played against. And, man, he kind of just made me feel like I was the most important dude in the world to them. And I think that's something I've really carried over into recruiting is man, everybody wants to feel valued. Everybody wants to feel wanted. And ultimately it kind of came to a point where him said, you're a good player, but we're not going to move forward with you. And so really it was between them and Louisiana Lafayette were the only 2 schools I had visits set up to go to, which ironically enough, John Sheff, who was my first boss, was the assistant at Lafayette at the time. So so I ended up going up on a visit to K-State, fell in love with it when I got up there. It's in Manhattan, Kansas. It's in the middle of nowhere, but I tell everybody, man, it's God's country in the middle of nowhere. And went on a visit, fell in love with it, fell in love with the culture, fell in love with everything, fell in love with the vision that they were kind of selling us, and ultimately decided, hey, this is where I want to be. And I had an awesome experience there. We went to the first regional in school history in 2009, my senior year. So really special place that really molded and really transformed me. I had zero desire to coach, zero. I was a mechanical engineering major. I wasn't going to get into coaching, and that place changed my life and changed the whole course of my career, and here we are.
So there's definitely a coaching question I want to ask there, because I did go back and watch the video that you gave at Mohegan, and you talked about a specific guy. I believe it's Andy Sawyers, which I'll get to in a minute there. But tell me about your playing career there. I'm assuming you didn't walk in freshman year and get a starting job, but maybe you did. I don't research it enough. Tell me about the playing side of your experience.
Yeah, so went in there, and just like high school, I was on JV as a freshman. Brandon Farr was the senior catcher, All-American, All-State, all of those things. So walk into K-State, Brandon Farr was the senior catcher. And like every young player, you want to get on the field right away. You want to, because you don't know what it's like to not play every day. Because if you're playing at that level, you've been the guy on your high school team at least. And so, but I ended up getting probably about 10 to 12 starts my freshman year. I usually caught on Sundays at the start of the year. And then like we do with guys, once we got to kind of the stretch run, I was there to back up Farr. I mean, I was there if he got hurt, about halfway through the year. He caught almost every game. I caught some midweeks here and there. Yeah. And at the time, you're wanting to be out there more. You're like, man, I can do this. I can do this. I think looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I got to sit back and watch what leadership looked like. I got to sit back and watch all the intricacies, more than the catch, throw, hit, all the pieces that went in to being a high-level catcher. And Brandon Farr did that at the highest clip. And I was able to kind of sit behind him and learn and kind of get my feet wet and play a little bit. I mean, I got to play at the University of Texas as a freshman. I got to play at some of these big places where I would get one start a weekend. And I think it allowed me to step in my sophomore year. And from my sophomore through my senior year, I started most every game the rest of the way. But, it was ironic back then is we were calling our own games then. And my pitching coach, Sean McCann, we'd sit down and go through the scouting report, and he kind of tossed me the reins to it. And as a freshman, I would not have been ready for that. There was you're emotional, you're young, you're impressionable, where I was able to watch Farr do it. And I watched how Brandon ran a staff. I thought he was the best I've ever seen at taking a pitcher that had his C stuff that day and making that guy feel like he could go get anybody out. And those are things I learned from Brandon that had I walked in and started every day, I wouldn't have been able to do, and I probably would have never learned. And so it was kind of the perfect storm of got my feet wet, went and played all summer, came back as a sophomore, and was able to kind of take the reins and run with it. And the amount I learned from Brandon in just that short year was pretty outstanding.
It's something funny. It just reminded me of, it's been 3 years I've been removed from a 30-year coaching career, but I had a kid, Cody Doyle, who caught for me, who was just an adult when he walked into campus at Sacred Heart, and I realized he probably had just as good of an opportunity to call games as I did. So I created something which I think the big leaguers use now. Like, I don't have a lot of creative ideas, but this was one of them. And I gave him a quarterback wristband with our scouting report of the opposing team. Here's what we're trying to do. And he would just look at it every time and get the information and then call his game accordingly. He's the only time I've ever done that. I guess they kind of do that because obviously the big league guys call their own game, but it seems like they are referring to their wrist a bit in that regard,
Yeah, and I think what we did, we would go through, I get why coaches shoot. We call the game for the most part here. I had a guy, Matt Gassetti, my first year here, that was elite. Man, he called his own game. Had feel, was awesome with it. We called it last year. But man, there's things you just see behind the plate that we don't see from the side. You see box adjustments. You read swings. I think the problem is I called my whole game my whole life. You get used to just paying attention. I think you're seeing these young people. I go to events when they're 12, you'll see these guys, they're calling the game for them. So because of that, these kids just aren't thinking the game. They're not having to do it. So we did it. Like I sat down with McCann, and we'd sit in the locker room after batting practice on that, before the first game of the series. And I always wanted to know a couple things. I wanted to know first pitch swingers, like who was super aggressive.
Right.
I wanted to know who could really run. And I wanted to know who I couldn't let beat us. Like, who's the guy that, man, if this guy beats us, we can live with it. This guy can't beat us. Those are the only three things I ever wanted to know. And from there, I felt like, man, I could. It's still, more than anything, it's still at our level. It's still about the dude on the mound more than it's the dude in the plate.
Yes.
This guy might stink at hitting changeups, but my guy might have the worst changeup in America. So
exactly.
It's not
Totally agree.
that. So,
right.
So much of what I do was reading the swing. So I'd sit with McCann, get that info. In about 2 of the game, you knew what you had on the mound, and you knew what that guy was doing at the plate. And if you just pay attention, man, that was part of the chess match. And that's transparently the only real reason I got to play pro baseball. I was a mediocre offensive player. Could really call a game. I could really work with pitchers. I could do that. And I think that kind of became my role, even in pro ball, was just give me the young guys that were coming out of high school that didn't know what the heck they were doing because they knew I could kind of control that. I just didn't have the physical ability to play at a high enough level to keep moving.
Well, I definitely want to ask about that getting to play pro ball. Something that just struck me there too was, a lot of times with catchers calling, obviously they can see the movement of the pitches. They know the umpire, but I'm laughing because obviously in the last 5 years, a lot of scouting gets done by Synergy and True Media, so you're looking at your stuff. But I remember before that, I would get, like, let's say a scouting report from you about Quinnipiac, right? And it would say something like, guy can't catch up to the fastball. But, well, my guys are throwing 87, 88. You guys might be throwing 94, 95. It's a different fastball they're catching up to. A little bit different.
Shoot, I remember back when I was catching there. And it's funny because he's supposed to be, now that I'm at Alabama, he's supposed to be my mortal. But Tony Vitello and I go way back. And at the time, he was the pitching coach at Missouri. And him and Sean McCann, who are now reunited, were kind of proteges back then. So I remember so many times McCann would call me, and he's like, hey, come up to the room. So I'd shoot up to his room, and he'd have Tony Vitello on the phone. He's like, all right, run through these hitters with Tony. Tell them what they can hit, what they can't hit. So I'm sending scouting reports to Tony, and we're talking through things. And, man, I was 19 years old. And Tony at the time was probably 25, 26. He was a young guy then. But it's just funny how it's all come full circle, and now we get to coach against each other in this league, which is a heck of a lot of fun.
And listen, obviously you can like the guy, you could be your best friend. When you get on the field, you could still want to kick his butt. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
There's 9 hours a year. 9 hours a year that me and Tony, because shoot, that group.
That's a great point.
It's Sean McCann, Ross Kivett, who played for me at K-State. It's Josh Reynolds, who's their director of whatever, some kind of pitching development or something. Like, those are all K-State guys. Those are all my dudes. And I talk to them and I love them. I'll give a hug before the game, and first pitch starts, and I want to rip their face off until the end of that game. Of course. Then we'll start over and do it again.
Yeah, it's like I was watching the Jets opening game, and I'm a big Jets fan, and we don't want to get sidetracked with the Jets, but it's like I hate the Steelers, and I want the Jets to want to hate the Steelers, and they played hard, but like after the game, these guys have a fraternity and they hug each other. Yep. It's like it doesn't mean next week they don't want to kick each other's ass again.
No question.
You know? So
no question. No question.
Back to I think you're being maybe a little humble. I don't think you would play pro ball unless someone saw something that you had the skills to do it, but. Back to what you said, you feel that was your value there, was all the sort of intangibles as opposed to sheer physical prowess?
I think so. I mean, in the 30th round draft pick, I didn't know if I was going to get drafted. The only team that called me right before the draft was the Chicago White Sox, and they said, "Hey, if a pick comes up and it's right, like, will you sign? You want to play?" And I was sitting at my now wife's house, but my girlfriend's house at the time. In Iola, Kansas, and I remember they called, and I was like, heck yeah, like I'm not going to be done. You can give me a plane ticket, and I'll be there. Shoot, I'll play for my own plane ticket if I get to keep playing.
Right.
So was back home in Texas for the draft. My mom had a little business out in our garage, a monograming business. She was out there working, and the last pick of day 3, or the last round of day 3, I have it up on my computer, and I'm doing something else, and I'm kind of listening to it. And I hear the Chicago White Sox, and they picked me. And I was pretty surprised. I walked outside. I was like, Mom, I just got drafted. And it was this really cool moment, like really neat. But that's what it was. I mean, Clay Overcash is a scout that drafted me, who's been around college baseball for a long time, was a scout in the Midwest at the time. And I think, talking to Clay now, because it's been cool to see how him and I have now become friends. And he was like, man, we kind of thought you were going to coach. He's like, when I put the draft things in on you, it was like, this guy can probably play up to AA. It's like a backup catcher. Coaches will love him. Probably not a big leaguer, but let him play for 2, 3, 4 years, and then let's kind of convert him over to the coaching side. And I think that was where my intangibles were. I wasn't physical at that position. I was 5'10", 185 pounds, threw enough. I hit enough. I mean, we think the bats are hot now. Those were the hottest bats in history that we were swinging at the time.
Oh, my God. Totally.
And I was like a 275, 280 hitter with 7 or 8 homers. So it's like, I wasn't some force offensively, but I think I was, and I didn't know it at the time, but I think I was kind of a coach on the field. I think that's kind of what my skills were, is I think I was a pretty unselfish player, because I think I had pretty good awareness that I was not the best player on our team. But my college roommate, who was the best man at my wedding, A.J. Morris, was a superstar that year. He finished second in the Golden Spikes behind Steven Strasburg that year.
Wow.
And went 14-1, was incredible. Ended up pitching in the big leagues. But I knew, like, my job was to make A.J. look good. And when A.J. had good stuff, my job was really easy. And when he didn't, it was my job to pull something out of him. And I felt like that was kind of what I always did good. I couldn't hit like Crash Davis. Crash Davis raked, but like the way he managed Newt Lanuge, like that was me. Like that was what made me good, and I think that's what allowed me an opportunity, and I think it kind of carved out my niche even when I got to pro ball, because you had way more talented catchers around me. Josh Fagley was our first round catcher in that draft, played in the big leagues. Miguel Gonzalez was a young 17-year-old Venezuelan kid, way more talented than I was.
Right.
But he was still learning, and so I think me and Miguel together were it was kind of a good combo, because it's like he was the guy that was going to move through the system. I was the guy that was going to help some of the pitchers move through the system, and I took a lot of pride in it. I spent a lot of time in the bullpen, learning from our pitching coaches, learning from the Rovers. John Orton was the catching Rover at the time. I don't even know if he's still there, but loved him. He was awesome, and I was soaking all this up because I felt like at that point in my career, I knew the end was in sight, and I knew I was going to be transitioning maybe more into the coaching world, and I just wanted to learn as much as I could from good people, and had a blast with it. But that was definitely kind of my biggest reason I got to play, is because I think I was good at drawing things out of other people, not necessarily performing myself.
So back to that kind of transition to coaching. Again, you mentioned in that talk, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, you were mechanical engineering, thought you were going to go that route. When did that seed get planted, that coaching? Was it while you were in college, in the minors, after you got out? When did that happen?
Yeah, kind of senior year, to be honest with you. We had we had that junior year where we had some talented players, and that was the year K-State was going to knock down the door to the postseason. And we were bad. We were 29-29. We weren't very good. Lost 4 or 5 really good draft picks, and then at the time our hitting coach left, who's a great friend of mine now, Lane Burrows, left to go take the hitting coach job at Mississippi State. And so when he did, we bring in this guy, Andy Sawyers, who was the volunteer at Texas A&M at the time. Had spent a long time in Nebraska, played at Nebraska. Brought in Andy, and we called him Saw Dog. And man, I didn't know what we were getting. I mean, I was kind of going into that year like, this is my senior year, this is my last ride. Let's see what we can do. And for the first time in my career, and this is not to say I didn't have great coaches, but I was like the good kid. I was a good student. I went to class. I never got in trouble. Like, I was on time. You know, it's just – and I think sometimes what happens as a coach, that kid, because he's a good kid that does everything right, people don't always tell him the truth. And I will never forget a conversation. We were in our indoor, Brandonberry Indoor Complex behind right field at K-State.
Yep.
And we were in there hitting, and I remember Andy telling me one day, he's in front of like 7 or 8 people. He's like, Rob, you're average. You've always been average, and you're made to be more than average. Why are you accepting mediocrity? You're doing this every day. Every day your work's mediocre, and you're made for more than that. And, of course, at the time, you get pissed, right? You're like,
right,
you're embarrassing me in front of people, this and that. But I went home, and I told you, like, I think I do have pretty good awareness. I went back to the apartment, and I was like, man, he's right, you know? And I'm not taking care of myself. I'm not taking this as seriously as I think I should, and anyway, a switch kind of flipped to me. And if we not had that conversation, I really believe, I don't know what I'd be doing right now, but it was the first person that cared about me enough to challenge me, but I knew he loved me. And I think that's the dichotomy of this whole thing, is like, if we really players, we owe them the truth, and we can't let them settle for less. And he's the first guy that ever did that to me. And so throughout the course of that year, I was playing pretty well, so I was like, man, I'm going to get drafted. I'm going to get a chance to keep playing. And I remember him telling me, he's like, hey, if you don't get drafted, you need to stay on and coach. And even then, I was like, we'll see. Like, so long story short, kind of throughout that senior year, I told him, I was like, fine, yeah, if I don't, I've got a year left on my degree, I'll come back and coach. And ended up being fortunate enough to get drafted. But I called him, so I spent my first year in rookie ball in Bristol, Virginia. Second year was in extended spring training, ended up going up to Great Falls, Montana, and was in the Pioneer League or Frontier, whatever, I think Pioneer League up there.
Yeah.
And about the middle of that summer, I got a call from Andy, and he was like, hey, one of our guys left. I don't know. And he knew I was catching like once a week. I wasn't playing much.
Right.
He was like, hey, are you interested in this? If you are, you know, you need to come back and be here before school starts. And I said, well, our season keeps going past then. Like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
Anyway, go in and talk to Chris Crone, my manager in Great Falls, who Croney was the man, the best manager, the best, like, he's got a couple kids playing the big leagues. Croney was the man. And I sat down with him and said, hey, I don't even know how to say this, but I've got this opportunity. I don't know what to do. I've never quit anything in my life. I don't believe in leaving early. You tell me what to do. He said, Rob, go pack your stuff up and go take that job. He's like,
wow.
He said, he's like, man, we would probably let you play another year or two, and then we're going to try to get you to start coaching. He said, if I had the choice, he said, I don't have a college degree. I can't coach in college. He said, if they're going to pay for you to finish your degree and you're going to be able to finish that and do all that, it's a no-brainer. You need to go do that. And so, long story short, all right, let's do it. And went into that. And so if it wasn't for Andy Sawyers, and I had Sean McCann was great. Brad Hill, our head coach, was so good to me. Lane Burrows is a friend of mine to this day. Like, I had some great coaches in my career. But if Andy Sawyers doesn't come in there, I don't know what I'm doing right now. Like, that guy absolutely changed my life. And then when I got to coach with him for 6 months before he left for Texas A&M, but is a friend to this day. And, man, I owe that guy everything.
So that's really, really, I mean, I think I could see a lot of that style in your style now as a coach, the way you love the guys, but also will challenge the guys, to be the best that they can be, which is great. So you ultimately stayed, how long as a coach were you at K-State?
So I was there for 2 seasons. I came back, and my first season was the 2011 season, I believe it was.
Yeah.
I think I was there 2011, 2012. And Sawyer's comes from, like, the Dave Van Corn, Rob Childress coaching tree. Like, that's, like,
right.
The people he grew up with. Matt Deggs. Like, those guys all went to junior college. So that was kind of it. Like, Sawyer's was like, you got to go cut your teeth in junior college. And he's like, I love you. If I was a head coach, I wouldn't hire you. You haven't had recruiting experience. You haven't done this. You need to go cut your teeth in junior college. And, of course, I'm like, I like K-State. Like, Manhattan.
Right.
Like, this is a good spot, you sure? But, again, he's the same way he challenged me as a player. He's challenged me as a coach. Like, dude, don't be comfortable. Like, you want to work for Rob Childress one day. You want to work for Dave Van Horn one day. You want to work for guys like that. Man, you go work. Like, and you go do the hard, messy work that we all did to get to where we're at. So I had taken a job at Pratt Community College right outside of Wichita, Kansas. And it was after that summer, yes, and about that time, John Sheff, who was, when Andy left to go to A&M, John Sheff came in from Kansas, and I'd worked with Sheff for a year and a half, and had known him well before then because he had recruited me in high school. But worked with him for a year and a half. He called me, and he said, hey, don't tell it just yet. I just got the job at Maryland, and I want to fly you and your wife out here to see it. So I told him, I was like, hey, am I a candidate? If so, I'll be up there. We'll interview, no problem. Or is this like you just want us to see it so we're comfortable? Because my wife and I had never been out to the East Coast. I mean, she's a Kansas girl. I'm a Texas kid. And he's like, no,
right.
The job's yours. I just thought you'd want to see it. And I said, no offense to Pratt. I'm sure it's a great place. But I was like, whatever is in there, I'm in. Like, I don't need to see anything. I'll be there. I'll get in my truck, headed out the next day, and got there. And the rest is history. So, yeah, I was there at K-State for 2 years before heading up to Maryland.
Okay, and then, so Maryland was 2013 to 2017 with John. John leaves for Virginia Tech, and then you get this head coaching job. How old were you when you got that head coaching job?
29 and completely unprepared. Yeah, that was the dumbest decision Kevin Anderson ever made at 29 years old, handing me the keys. Lord have mercy. But, man, so much of life is this. It's the right place at the right time, and that's kind of what it was. And I had worked really hard. We'd had some good years, but I just, I was 29, kind of in the right spot.
So this is kind of the key part I wanted to ask you about now. So obviously, and we'll get to some Alabama stuff, you're in this great position now. Obviously, you're tremendously qualified. You're a great speaker. I mean, I'm 56. I want to be a college sophomore at Alabama and play for you, right?
Come on.
But again, with that speech at Mohegan, you admittedly said, I really was not prepared at 29 to be a head coach at Maryland. Obviously, they saw something in you, and clearly you knew what you were doing baseball-wise, and even you talked about the maturity and what you were like in the minor leagues. But when did the epiphany happen to you where you kind of got into, this is the culture I want, this is the leadership, the kind of the Simon Sinek, like, was that in you all along, or did something happen that brought that out of you?
No, I mean, not at all. We'd had 2 awesome years under Sheff, and we were very fortunate when we got there. Like, Eric Bakich had kind of flipped the culture, but just had not got to see the fruits of his labor. Like, there was that freshman class was special. Brandon Lau, big leaguer, was a freshman in that class. Lamont Wade, big leaguer, freshman in that class. Jose Quas, big leaguer, freshman in that class. Like, so there was talent there, but they just hadn't been good. Like, but he had done the hard work of flipping it. Then it just took us kind of coaching these guys up, because there was an element of just getting them to believe that they could beat Florida State, that they could beat Virginia, that they could beat North Carolina. So anyway, go through that 2014, 2015 back-to-back super regional appearances, which was unheard of there. Like that should never have happened at that school. Yeah. So I think there was a little bit of that. Because of this success, we've started recruiting. Jimmy Bellinger's at Clemson's one of my best friends. Like, Jimmy and I were just like the young, relentless recruiting guys that I think these players believed in. And so I think at that point we had success. We had really good recruiting classes coming in. So I think the administration was like, hey, let's not mess this up. Let's keep the one. And Jimmy had since left and gone to Kentucky. So it's like, let's kind of keep this together a little bit. And so, long story short, I think that first year, man, I didn't know anything. I was lost. And I tell every recruit in this meeting when I sit down with them, I met with 9 recruits and their families this weekend in one-on-one meetings. And that's what I told them. I said, man, that first year you come in, you're 29. Everybody's telling you you're the youngest head coach in Division I baseball, power conference. And you start believing it. You're like, man, I'm good. I'm pretty good at this. And man, that first year we were so bad. We were 24-30. We didn't have bad players either. We just weren't good. I felt like I was in between. I coached Chef for 5 years, and I love the man. I respect him. I owe him and Andy Sawyers. I owe everything in my career to. But I was like, I guess I'm supposed to be Chef. And Chef was a little bit more of, and I mean this in the most respectful way possible.
I know where you're going.
Yeah, a little more the CEO. Like, hey, Rob, you got the hitters. Jimmy, you got the pitchers. I'm going to cover team defense, but I'm going to let you guys do your thing. And so I was like, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. So it was like, hey, Swope. By the way, Swope was a first-year coach at that time, now the head coach of Maryland. Like, hey, take him and run with him. And then I had Corey Mascara with me, too, there, who's now over at Duke. And, it was just like, I felt like I was lost. I didn't know where I fit, and I didn't know how to do some of this, and we were bad. And so at the end of that year, I kind of sat down, and I'm a reader. I love reading, and I read Pete Carroll's book called Win Forever, and he talks about getting fired from the NFL and, like, sitting down and being like, hey, can I write out what my beliefs are, what my culture is, what I believe in? Can I write that down? And I sat there and started challenging myself. I'm like, I don't think I can. Like, we're young and we play hard and we hit home runs. Like, that's not a culture. That's not anything. So that kind of started our belief in, man, what is the mission of this program? What gets us out of bed in the morning? We wrote kind of a mission statement out. That has kind of evolved over the years, but I show it to every recruit that's in my office. It's on the wall of our team lounge in there. I make all our players memorize it. We sat down and talked about our pillars. Like, what do we want? Like, I don't know what they're called. Those, we were the Terps, right? So I hate stuff where it's like T-E-R.
Right.
I think it's
forcing it. Yeah,
some people love it. I didn't like that. I was like, I just things that I actually legitimately care about, and those were the pillars. And what we came up with, those pillars have not changed over the years. And so that was kind of the first foray into that. It started with reading Pete Carroll's book, and then you referenced it. Simon Sinek Starts With Why kind of changed the way I communicate in recruits, with players, with families, and everything. And I think the timing of those was perfect, because when you fail, I think you have one of two options. You either are kind of dumb, for lack of a better term, like, I'll just try it again next year. And if you do anything different, you're going to get the same results, right? So I knew I could look in the mirror and say, man, I did a poor job coaching those kids. But I can guarantee you I'm not sitting here today. Even if we were 30-24, even if you flip that record, you'd look at me like, oh, that wasn't bad. Like, we weren't great, but we weren't bad. We won 30 games. But I think when you fail, you're a little bit embarrassed. You're a little frustrated. All of those things roll into that. But I also was super aware that, man, I don't believe in quick fixes. I think quick fixes are awful, and I think quick fixes don't do anything in that regard. And so they just aren't lasting. So I was like, man, I'm okay. I want this thing to get better, but I want to do it the right way. I don't want to just cut these players and start over. I don't want to do I want to have a foundation for what it means to play at the University of Maryland. And that's what we started. And the next year, we were a little bit better. And the next year, we were a little bit better. And then by 22, we hosted the first regional. We went to a regional in 21, first regional host in school history in 22, won the Big Ten, won the Big Ten again in 23, back in a regional. And I think all of that was really, you can point back to sucking year one as a team and me as a coach. And doing the dirty work of like, man, what do I want this to actually be built on? And I think we built a foundation and built it slowly and the right way, and I think because of that we were able to kind of do some special things there before we headed out.
So there's a couple of things there I love. First of all, I'm a huge reader too. Like I've just got to read something. I think it's just even if you know it, it just keeps you on track. You know, it's just great. And unfortunately, in the modern world, there's not a lot of people reading straight up books anymore. You know, I mean, have you ever assigned teams to read anything? Do you ever do something like that? Or
yeah, we have. I used to in Maryland. We did like I'd give them a list of books. I'm like, I don't care which one you read, but you're reading one of these over the break. You know, I don't do it as much anymore. We have meetings every Friday where I do a lot of stuff. Like Teddy Roosevelt is like my dude. I love anything by Teddy Roosevelt. I've got the Man in the Arena speech hung in my office.
Yeah, love it.
About that a lot. We do a lot of that stuff. But I kind of tell them, like, I'm all about it. Like, shoot, you want to listen to it on an audiobook? Do it. You guys are going to class. You're doing this. Go do it, man. That's better than nothing.
Right.
And I know some guys probably do and some guys probably don't. But man, I'm the same way. I love podcasts. I love Glue Guys podcast. If you haven't listened to it, it's one of my favorite ones. It's awesome. But like podcasts, reading, audiobook, all that stuff. I mean, I've got a ton of books back behind me here that we go through. So, you know, what I try to do if I don't think they will is, and we'll do stuff in our meetings where I try to kind of at least help get the messaging out there to them of it. But man, I've read a ton of books, and shoot, I had a coach. Literally, I spoke at a thing for him the other day, and the way he compensated me for that was he just sent me the new John Gordon book the other day. So I'm fired up to get that one started.
Yeah, and something else, again, I could tell just on this talk, but again, it was back to I thought one of your talk at Mohegan Sun, I thought was one of the best I've ever seen. I really, really do. And what I loved is something I've always said, like, I loved coaching baseball. I like baseball, but it was like the way to coach people, but let's use baseball because that's just, and you had said in that speech, like at that time was 2023, you know, I've coached 5 guys that made the big leagues, and I'm proud of that. But I'm also proud to the guy who is just a father, husband. He's an employee. He's just a good human. Like the pillars are helping make better human beings. And I think that's important because obviously at Alabama, God knows, winning a College World Series, you probably go to bed at night thinking about that.
Oh, yeah.
And you want to make, and winning is crucial, but winning is also a byproduct of running things the right way, right? So when a team is not good, it's usually something, and it could just be straight up not having good enough players, but sure. I would imagine in an SEC team, there's probably pretty good talent going around. So is that something that is like a guiding force for you of like, how do I make better human beings while I'm doing this?
No doubt. So the winningest sports program of all time in any sport is the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team. And there's a book called Legacy. In the first chapter in Legacy, it's better people make better All Blacks. That's their thing. Like, I think we're in this world where like good guys finish last, this and that, and I just think that's garbage. I think we talk a lot, man. Team meeting I had with our guys, our first Friday meeting we spent 20 minutes talking about how we treat women. Because I think that matters. Like, I think how these guys interact with their girlfriends, how they interact with a young lady on a Friday night at the strip, that matters. And that screams a lot about your character. And the New Zealand rugby team shows you, like, dude, better people are more reliable. I talked to them about if a team and an organization wants to invest in Wayne Mazzoni, if they're going to $7 million, dude, they're going to turn over everything. You right. being a man of character, you being somebody who wants to invest in, is a big them turning $7 million into your hands. So we spend a lot of time talking about it. The first line of our mission statement is to be a character and leadership development program, because that's really it, man. Like, we want to win more than anybody. Don't get me wrong. We're going to win. We've always won. We're going to do that stuff. But ultimately, man, I think this is going to sound maybe morbid or dark, but man, when my time on Earth is done, and I'm hopefully all sorts of grandkids and all that, but when it's done, I think if I'm laying on my deathbed and I was like, man, I won a lot of games, I think it's going to be a hollow feeling, and you talk about it. Shoot, Mike Morrison won a national championship, my recruiting guy, won a national championship at Coastal Carolina. Wood won a national championship. He's my player development guy at Ole Miss. all of that is awesome, and we all want to be a part of that. But those things are very fleeting, man. You hear these coaches talk about it all the time. You win it, and then it's like, now what? You win it.
Right.
What comes next? And like,
Right.
I really view our job as super exciting because yes, the conduit we get to coach with is baseball, and I love it more than anything. I love getting to coach it, and I love the competition. I love going into Knoxville and having rabid fans that we get to compete against. It's awesome. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think it's our job, man, to sow seeds with these kids, to just to to give them stuff, to try to teach them stuff. And sometimes we get to see the reward of that. And you get to see the fruit of that, which is really really cool. And sometimes you don't, And so I think that's the beauty of this whole thing is you get to navigate this and you get to figure out, what this looks like. And shoot, Hunter Parsons, one of my pitchers from Maryland, sent me a picture of his
I
daughter
don't know if
last
you can
year.
hear me. It froze on your
And
side. I'm
literally
going to do this.
sitting there holding it, and he said,
I'm
"Man,
going
I
to
didn't
stop.
understand." I don't
Yeah,
know what
sorry.
happened there.
No, I don't know. So I'm going to go to the old Zoom. So I'll just
Perfect.
we're recording already, and I'll just get right
Cool.
back to. So
Perfect.
yeah, and it's funny when you go back to you were talking about being on a deathbed, which is not morbid. Like it's the only thing we actually know in this world is we're going to die, right? We
Yep.
we all come with an expiration date, which means we should enjoy and get the most out of every day, right? The thing about winning, you were talking about your assistants that won those national championships. The thing that's great about that when you see those people you were with that were part of that team, it's just an incredible bond. But
No doubt.
what you were saying was like, if it's only about the wins, it's not that exciting. You still want to have impact to the guy that maybe his career didn't go the way it was supposed to go, or he's the backup, or whatever the case is, right? So,
No doubt.
uh, the two more things I really wanted to cover. One is you talked about you had some 27s on campus, this particular weekend. I think it's obvious. I don't even need to waste time asking what are you looking for from players. You're looking for kids that are physical with baseball skills. I don't think it's that difficult, right? Do you go above and beyond either vetting these kids or researching them to know they will buy in to what the way you want your program to be?
100%. I mean, I think if you look on the other side of this wall is Coach Papio's office, and we have a big whiteboard up there. And I told every one of them here when they were with me this weekend, I said, there's probably 100 names on that whiteboard of people that we've communicated with, talked to, had some type of interaction with since August 1st. Every single one of those kids is good enough to play at Alabama. Every single one of them on that list is good enough. For us, it's about which one's the right one. And it doesn't mean that the wrong one for Alabama is a bad player. It's
Right.
just not the right place here. And so I tell so many families, I'm like, you're probably going to hear don't come to Alabama more from me than you hear from anybody else. Because if this isn't right, it's better for both of us. I don't care how good you are. It's truly better for all of us to go another direction. And that's okay. And I'm okay with that because if not, you're going to get here. This isn't what you want. It's the reason there's 7,000 kids in the transfer portal. There's a reason, like, we have the highest retention rate in our league over the last 3 years since we've been here. We bring in the fewest amount of freshmen on average in our league. We bring in the fewest amount of transfers on average in our league. And all that's very intentional because we want the right people. And it's the Herb Brooks thing from the Olympic hockey team, right? I don't want the best team. I want the right team. And
Great point.
yes, you have to have talent. Let's call it what it is. I mean,
Of course.
if you're going to be a great person and be 77 to 78, it's probably not going to work here. Like
Right.
it's still got to be good. But I think the right people respond to that. And we tell them, like, I think recruiting is sales a lot. We're trying to sell Alabama, why you should come to Alabama instead of Tennessee and Auburn and Mississippi State and this, we're trying to sell that. Ultimately, what I really want to do, and I think our staff does, is man, we just want to be us. Like, this is who we are. This is what we're passionate about. If this works and that's what you believe in, the law of attraction says you're coming. And
Right.
if it doesn't, you're not. But at the end of this thing, like, that's what I want this to look like. This is what I want it to be about is I want to get the right people in the room. And sometimes you have to wade through a lot of stuff because I don't buy into it that kids are just different nowadays and
I
kids are a
agree.
problem. Like, there's some great families, great kids out there that still believe what we believe. But man, it's just about wading through some of the ones that don't. And when you get a no, you're okay with it. And when you get a yes, you know they're coming for the right reasons, and that's what makes this thing a heck of a lot of fun, a fun puzzle to put together.
Yeah, I mean, there's a quote, I forget the basketball guy who said it, and he basically said kids haven't changed, the adults have changed. We've changed the environment, but I think every kid still craves structure, hard work, challenge,
No
competitiveness.
doubt.
That's never going to change. This could be a little bit of, and I have just two more questions for you, and I so appreciate your time.
Yeah.
One is there an example, and it might be hard, that in everyday practice you're trying this pillar of character and leadership? Is there a way in the minutia of every day that it's set up to for these kids to develop? That's like, is there a bunting drill? Is there something that instead of it just being a straight up bunting drill, it's a bunting drill where some other lesson is being taught at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, so from my years in Maryland, I lived in Annapolis, which is where the U.S. Naval Academy's at. And it's one of my favorite stories. Mo laughs at me because I literally have said this in every recruiting visit I've ever done. But I went to lunch with a professor of leadership at the academy one time, and I said, man, give me one piece of advice that you give plebes in plebe summer when they're coming in. And he said, Rob, it's easy. Choose to do the hard thing on purpose. And he said,
Oh,
he's
I
like,
love it.
choose to do the hard thing on purpose. And he was like, that is my number one thing because we are wired as humans for the path of least resistance, for comfort, for the easy route. And man, if you do what everybody else does, you're going to get what everybody else gets. And man, we want to be different. We want to be elite. We want to be in the 1% of the 1%. And it's the reason that there's so much mediocrity in not just in college baseball, but just in the world because
Totally.
nobody wants to do hard and people run from hard. I sent our guys a thing today because we've been, we kind of, you got to crawl before you walk, right? So we've
Yep.
been kind of
Yep.
inching in some hitting stuff out there. So, we've been doing some angle machine stuff. We've done some fastball machine stuff. I spun him a breaking ball yesterday. What we're going to do today is going to be hard. I texted him. I said, today's the day we start sharpening the sword, boys. So if you're going to come out with a bad attitude, I'm going to send you straight home
Right.
because that's what I want. Like every day in practice is set up for them to have to live out those pillars. Our three pillars we talk about are ownership, toughness, and grit. Those are our three things that we talk about. So every day in practice, it is set up to where they're going to have to embody those because, man, this is the drills that we're going to do and the chaos that ensues through those. Man, you're going to fail and it's going to be hard. I tell them, man, you're going to fail. It's going to be hard. Failure is a prerequisite to success. And that's the whole man in the arena speech is, man, like, it's not the critic who counts. It's the man who's in the arena. Then it goes on and it's like, man, who at the best is a triumph, a high achievement. And if at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. That's what I want for my kids, period. And every day we're on the field, I want that tested and I want them to force, man. Like if you're gonna fail, fail sending it. Don't fail because you're embarrassed. Don't fail because you're afraid of what your teammates think or we think. And that's this trap that these young people have fallen into. And in this world, we don't set them up for success like that because social media has a bunch of keyboard warriors that are going to tell you what they think. And at the end of the day, we have a rule around here, man. If you're not putting yourself out there willing to get your ass kicked, then your opinion doesn't matter. Like I tell our guys that all the time. And so within that, like everything we do in practice, a drill we're going to do today is hard. And this is not the one they're going to walk out of like, man, I just hit 12 homers. I feel like I'm the man. It's one that's like, what does it take to break you, man? Does you struggling, does you going through this, you're going to get embarrassed in front of your teammates? Like, because it's going to be hard. But I think that's the same reason nobody has success against Cade Anderson from LSU, but we hit him about as good as anybody did. Nobody has success against Liam Doyle. We probably had the best success against Liam Doyle. Nobody has success against Malachi Witherspoon from OU, but we did. Like, or Kyson Witherspoon, both of them really. But like nobody has success against them, but we did. But it's because these guys show up and do this stuff every day. And we have a sign, man, when we're walking out of the locker room that they see before they walk on the field. And it said, just be tougher than they are. That's what it says.
Mm.
Like, but that, like, it's not a facade. It can't be because
Right.
fake
Yeah.
tough gets blown out of the water when it gets hard. Real toughness and confidence comes from doing hard stuff. And it's the reason Navy SEALs train the way they do and elite special force people train the way they do. It's the reason you saw Kobe Bryant be relentless in everything he did. Like, that confidence doesn't come from your last swing, your last shot, your last touchdown pass. It comes from the tireless work, and you can't cheat that. And there's no shortcut to that, which is why there's so few elite people. And so all of the stuff we do within there is designed for them to have to own everything, for them to have to be the toughest group on the field, and grit is everything, man. Like the mark of a man, dude. It ain't what you're doing on the mountaintops. When you get put on your back, can you get back up? And so every day in practice, that's what we try to train. And I really believe, I really to my core believe that if that's what the environment that they're raised in every single day here in Tuscaloosa, whether they head to the big leagues or whether they head down the road to get married and start a family, they're going to be part of that 1%.
Yeah, I love that. So many things that frustrated me. I'm a pitching guy, right? So I always call myself like the head coach of the pitchers. Like you got 22
Mm-hmm.
pitchers. I'm over there doing my thing. And now, thank God, in college baseball, there's more full-time coaches and you
No
have
doubt.
some pitching guys, etc. But I would be, I'm a lefty and could throw BP. I could throw every day, all day, right? And I got tired of throwing BP where everyone wants a feel good round. And then we get
Mm-hmm.
two hit against some Bryant team or something. I go,
Oh yeah.
all right, in BP now, I'm going to carve your ass up with everything I
Yep.
got. I'm going to have to ice after, but I'm throwing hard in. I'm throwing sliders. I'm throwing splits. And I don't care if you don't like the way it feels in these drills because it ain't working in the game. So
Yep.
everything you're saying is great. And it makes me think of a guy, Michael Easter, who wrote a book called The Comfort Crisis. And you're
Okay.
right.
Yeah.
People are just, wired. You're right. Unfortunately, wired to do simple things. The final thing I'm going to ask you, putting you on the spot with this one.
Oh boy.
You get ready. Because I'm slightly challenging you for something.
I love
Um,
it.
I think I'm planting a seed in your head that somewhere Rob Vaughn has to get more than just Alabama baseball. In other words, you're having a tremendous impact on all the kids on your roster, on your coaches, and I'm sure in many other ways. But could you run for president? Could you be a governor? Could you be a congressman? Can you be an author? Can you like I'm not there needs to
Uh,
be some way. You're a rare guy, man. You're a special guy. I really you fired me up on this one. I've been out of coaching 3 years and my lifestyle now, I can't beat it. I get to play golf. I get to do things. I still help kids with recruiting, but I miss, like I said, if coaching was
sure.
9 to 5, it would be the
Yeah.
greatest job in the world because
No
it's a
doubt.
lot of time. You got young kids, but when I hear you talk, it makes me like want to go to the NCAA and look for job openings. But have you thought about anything of like a book or something, a way you can, and you have done it at the speeches, but you're too good to keep just in that little Tuscaloosa. You got to get you out a
Well,
little.
it's funny. There's actually a really dear friend of mine. The joke I've always told my wife's like, what are you gonna do when you're done coaching? I said, I'm gonna open a coffee shop. It's what I've always wanted to do. I want to open a coffee shop. But we have a friend of ours. She's one of my best friends in the world. Great family. Her husband's one of my best friends, Jocelyn Sachs. So Jocelyn works at a church that we went to back in Maryland, Bay Area Community Church, and she is the amount of leadership stuff I've learned from her over the years is unbelievable. She is a motivator of people. She's willing to have the hard conversations. She's one of the best leaders I've ever been around in a
Mm,
setting that you don't necessarily think about elite leadership from
great
the
point.
position that she's in. And that's always been our joke is like she's like, man, when I get tired of this world and you get tired of coaching, let's get together and start something around leadership and training and this and that. And that's my greatest passion in the world because I think
It
that's
seems it. Yes. Yeah.
that's what I think this world needs more of. I just
You're
think
right.
we need better leaders. We need better men and women of character and I think what I love about this is you just have the ability to I think these young people are in the most impressionable parts of their life in 18 to
Totally.
22 and I hope I coach a ton of big leaguers. I hope I get to go to this place up above me plenty of
Yep.
times. Like I
I do
want all
too.
that. But man, I think there's just something more to life. And I think there's something more. I don't think I was put on this earth to strictly teach somebody to hit a baseball. And I think I've been uniquely positioned in a place that we get to impact that and I get to do it playing the sport I love every day. So who knows what the future holds. I
Yeah.
always joke
Yeah.
about that. I was like, my career was kind of fast tracked in some ways. Like I got a job before I should have.
Right.
I got the job here. 35 when I got the job in this league, and so it's like, man, does that mean the career ends earlier? So there's a second act somewhere. I don't know. I have no idea what the future holds, but I know my family and I absolutely love Tuscaloosa, and it's been such a blessing to us, and I get to work with my best friends every day. And man, if we're influencing people and we're helping really just shape that next generation, man, I hope I'm here a long time and get to do that.
No, that's perfect. I think you're in a fantastic spot. You've gotten where you are at your age because of the man that you are. So they're lucky to have you. You're lucky to be in that great environment. But you're right. Maybe in 15, 16 years and you've been there and maybe you've been won Omaha a couple of times, you might say, "Hey, there's more to give still." Who knows? We don't have to settle that now, Rob, but
No,
that
just
could
say
be,
if this if we don't figure out this NIL situation, that might come sooner rather than later. I'll tell you that.
well, I don't want to end on that note, but it's interesting. It's interesting because I talk to a lot of coaches, and I almost feel like the happy place now is a lot of these D3 friends that I have
No
that
doubt.
aren't dealing with the NI. No, it's not the money. It's not. There's a lot of things that aren't as good
No
as what you have
question.
it. But boy, they can kind of put the day to rest. Like it's a never ending. And you seem to have a
No
good
doubt.
grasp. You seem to have a very good grasp on all the craziness. But
Yeah.
it does seem to be affecting people and how much it's changing. But you can only live with the
It's
rules you're given.
that's it, right? Like dinosaurs they don't exist anymore because they didn't evolve. That's like the Coach Saban quote. So it's like I think is if we're gonna sit here and complain about the rules and complain about, I mean, we get to coach in an unbelievable place. Like if I'm going to sit here and complain about that, I need to go quit and do something different. Like
Totally
we
agree.
have it awesome. Is this the new world we live in? Sure. And there's a lot of people that would in a heartbeat switch spots with me. So there ain't a day that we complain about it. We're going to show up and
Exactly.
we're gonna figure out within the rules what we can and can't do. And I think there's some beauties of it too that nobody wants to talk about. I think there's some really cool pieces of this NIL world that's been really neat for some families too. So you have the choice to suck your thumb and feel bad for yourself and complain, or hey, here's the rules. Let's go operate within them and get our group of guys. And I'm lucky to have a group of dudes around me that does an incredible job with it. So we have a blast every day.
Awesome. All right, listen, thanks again for spending the time. I really appreciate it. I think you're a super guy, and you're actually brewing in my mind that I might make a little October road trip or something and come down and maybe
Come
if you
on.
if you'd let me, I'd come just hang around for a practice or something.
Heck yeah. You are
All right.
welcome anytime. That gate's open. We'd have a blast.
All right, awesome. All right, Rob. I so
Uh,
appreciate it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Game Plan Podcast. Again, this is your host, Wayne Mazzoni. For more information about my recruiting business, simply check out my website, collegebaseballadvisor.com. I hope you really got some motivation and some enthusiasm from this talk with Rob Vaughn. Really probably the favorite podcast I've done to date because I always viewed coaching baseball as just trying to make better people, and it's clear that that's his motivation. Again, I'd like to remind you that the main sponsor for this podcast, the Mohegan Sun Baseball Coaches Convention, which takes place January 15th to 17th, 2026 at the Mohegan Sun Casino. This is an awesome venue. It's an awesome convention. There's great vendors. There's wonderful people to network with. There's great talks with really good baseball people where you can sit in that audience and listen, but also interact with these people and share ideas. And there's a batting cage and an open infield where demos happen. It's just a great event that is something that gets you fired up for baseball at this great environment. So thank you again for listening to this episode, and we look forward to seeing you on future episodes of the podcast. Thank you.